just the administrative stuff first. This is the outline of the class. To start with the admin stuff, there will be quiz 4 this Thursday, and materials will be case 6, 7, and chapters 9 and 11. I think I'm going to do American Apparel case today, so I may throw in one question on the American Apparel into the quiz on Thursday. So look out for that. Case 7 is graded. I'll post that after the class, and then I'll return your grades from the analysis and the presentation after the class. So if you have any questions, you can come see me. So case 8, I changed from GE to Chipotle because of the materials they were going to cover. I think Chipotle is better suited than GE. So I'm going to post the case guideline by the end of the day today. So if you have any questions, you can come see me. The rest of the cases remain to be the same. And I posted a new syllabus that also has schedule for extra credit presentation. For opportunity number 2, we have 4 presentations going on. That'll be March 28th and April 4th, and all the rest will be, I think, will be the last day of the class before the review. Okay. All right. Any questions? Yeah.
So if we were going to present on GE, we need to do Chipotle?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Other questions? Oh, I think on the newly revised syllabus, I omitted quiz 5. That was not on purpose. I made a mistake. So the quiz 5 will still happen, and it will be on the April 4th. So I'm going to revise that and then post that up after the class today, so there's no confusion. All right, so today we're going to go over the chapter on vertical integration and what that vertical integration is and how they relate to strategy that we have discussed. Okay, so here are the objectives of the class today. So I'm going to investigate the benefits and costs of the vertical integration. And based on the benefits and costs, we're going to see whether the company is better off doing the vertical integration or outsourcing some of the activities. So in essence, it's do the company want to make their own stuff, or do they want to buy it from somewhere else? Okay. Lastly, I want to discuss the different types of vertical relationship and talk about factors that may influence the firm's choice on what they choose as an alternative vertical relationships. Okay, so there are 2 elements of strategy. Anyone want to shout out what the 2 elements are?
Is it
Yeah.
corporate and business?
Okay, so there's corporate and business strategy, and what do each entail?
Where and how?
Yeah. So so for corporate strategy, we're looking at where should firm compete, and for business strategy, we're looking at how should the firm compete. So in the previous lectures, we mainly focused on the business strategy of things, right? How do firms obtain a competitive advantage, and how do they maintain their competitive advantage, right? And we had a limited discussion on the corporate strategy, besides that we looked at the industry analysis using the Porter's 5 forces. So now that we're going to concentrate on, so given that firm has decided the industry and market that they're going to go into, the firm has to decide the scope of the business operations, right? So there are 3 types of three types of scopes. One is the vertical scope, the other is product scope, and the last one is geographic scope. So vertical scope basically talks about what's the range of control that firm has on different stages of the activities. Anyone want to guess what the product scope is? Yeah?
How many different products they're going to sell?
Okay, so different products and the range of products that the firm wishes to specialize and produce. What about the last one? Yeah, Leandro?
Geographic area that they're going to be selling the product in.
Okay, perfect. So range of geographic locations that the firm wants to operate. So for this class, we're going to concentrate on the vertical scope. And for ensuing classes, we're going to look at both the product scopes and the geographic scopes. So let's look at the example of the vertical scope. So this is the example of steel producing and can producing company. So there can be 2 options, right? A firm can decide to integrate everything in once. So they can decide to mine their own stone, bauxite, and then using the bauxite, they can manufacture aluminum, and then with using the aluminum, they can make cans. Or they can decide to outsource the mining of the stone to somewhere else, and then do a market contract in order to get the aluminum, and likewise get the market contract in order to get cans. So here's what the bauxite looks like. A firm can get the bauxite by themselves, make it into aluminum, and then eventually make it into the cans. So they can either do it by themselves, or they can make a contract with different companies that specialize in each thing. And we're going to discuss why vertical integration is better or not better in different contexts, and what are the factors that influence the decisions to do a single integrated firm versus the specialized firms linked by a market contract. Okay. So let's talk about vertical integration. There are two components of the vertical integration. So from the raw materials to manufacturing and manufacturing to distribution, what do you know about this one? What's the process of this called? What type of integration is the back end? Yeah,
Is it backwards integration?
correct. So it's a backward integration. Backward integration is basically controlling from the raw materials into manufacturing activities, so supply activities, right? So what about the front end of the things, from manufacturing into distribution where consumers gets the good? Janae? Front end? Correct. So it's called forward integration, right? So there are two components, a backward integration and forward integration. So when a company is completely integrated, it means that they're going to do both backward and forward, and then they can be semi-integrated or partially integrated, doing one thing, but then outsourcing the other. Okay? Questions? Okay. So the key question here is, which is more efficient? Is it more efficient to have several firms do their own thing and then make a contract? Or is it better to have one firm with several specialists linked by employment contracts, right? So what do you think are some of the factors that matter in deciding what's more efficient? What's the main thing that matters? Cost, right? So what are the costs called that's associated with the market contracts? Yeah, Callie,
Is
really?
it like transaction costs?
Yeah, transaction costs. And what do transaction costs entail? What are components of transaction costs? What is transaction cost? Yeah.
Search costs to actually find them, so like there's time involved, and then also the actual price of the contract.
Okay, so you can think about transaction costs as every cost that is incurred when you're making a contract with a different country, a different company. So you need to find the company, so that's a search cost. And once you found the company that you know that you're going to transact with, you need to make a negotiation of the contract, and you need to make sure that contract is being enforced, and then cost of arbitration or litigation if anything goes wrong. Okay? So what's the cost that's associated with the employment cost? Employment contracts. What is it called? Travis?
That would be more manufacturing costs because you're producing it yourself by paying your employees.
Okay. Any other guys? Yeah?
Administrative costs?
Okay. So so you can think about this as a cost to maintain your employees, right? So given that the firm decided to vertically integrate it and do everything by themselves, they're going to have a contract with their employees to do different types of work, and then that's the cost that's incurred, so we call that an administrative cost. So it's a cost incurred to decide what the optimal scale of operations, and then having them to do different capabilities of work, and then cost to make sure that everyone has a good motivation and incentives to do the work that they're designated to do. Right? Okay. So what are some of the reasons that a firm might want to integrate? So before we get into actual benefits and cost analysis of vertical integration, why would you think that firm wants to vertically integrate? What are some benefits of vertical integration? Yeah?
The administrative costs are less than the transaction costs.
Okay.
And then,
But is that always true?
no, like I'm saying, if that were true, they would
Okay.
want to vertically integrate.
Okay.
And also maybe the leverage power over their suppliers.
Uh-huh.
Maybe another reason.
Okay, that's a good point. So market power will be a good reason why firm want to benefit. So when you're doing a market contract, so let's go back to our initial diagram. So when you do a market contract such that you're a manufacturer or you're a distributor, but you don't know how things are going on here, you can't really have a control over the actual raw prices if you're a distributor and then you're not vertically integrated, right? So the key point of why firm would do vertical integration is in order to get a market power, right? So you can control everything from the raw materials to the actual products because you are doing everything by yourself. So you have the control over the downstream price, and then you can also have a control over the upstream price, right? So and also when you're doing everything by yourself, you're making it more difficult for your competitors to come in because you're likely to have a cost advantage and then price control than a market contract companies. So what's the other main reason that firm may want to vertically integrate? Why does it help to do a vertical integration? Yeah.
They can lower your cost
And what's that part of?
and increase competition.
Okay. Okay.
So like lower transaction costs.
Okay. So so there's a keyword for all that, right? So the keyword, do you have a thought?
No.
Okay. So the keyword is efficiency, right? So basically, if you're doing everything by yourself, you can minimize the hold-up problem, the time it takes to get item delivered from your other contracts to yourself. And you can also protect the product quality. So when you outsource your products, it's very difficult to check every product by yourself. But if you're doing everything by yourself, it's easier to do the product quality. And you can also improve your scheduling, right? So you don't have to consider the time it takes to get items to be delivered to you, and then if you don't have to think about the problems that the other companies may have that may delay the schedule of what you want to do. So market power and efficiency are probably the two major benefits of why firms want to integrate. So now we're going to look at the benefits and costs of vertical integration. So the main benefits of vertical integration is when you do everything by yourself, it's easier for you because you are already familiar with the integration process, right? So suppose you're vertically integrating in the steel production. If you mine your own iron and then do the steel production, it's easier for you because of the lower transportation and energy costs it takes. It costs for you to make a transaction with someone else. Right? So because you're mining your own thing and then making your own product, it takes much less time and energy instead of having someone else deliver the iron and then you making the product. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, so other thing, like Blake mentioned, is the transaction cost that's involved in market contracts. So when there are a small number of firms, the switching cost is very high. Because of the lower competition, obviously, and lack of information that's being exchanged in the market. And the transaction costs can also incur when there's transaction-specific investments and when there's opportunistic behavior in the market, and likewise, there may be taxes and regulation on market transactions. Any question on how these transaction costs occur? So maybe like transaction-specific investments, you can think about a plant that's being specific for someone else, right? So one of the example, let's say, is like steel production and steel rolling. So once you produce I think it's aluminum production and aluminum rolling. Once you produce your aluminum has to be produced in a way that it can be rolled so that it can be produced to something else, right? So if you produce aluminum that's not rollable, then it has almost no value. So your initial investment in how you're going to produce your aluminum depends on how the aluminum rolling process is going to be in the other side of the market. Does that make sense? So your initial investment is very specific to the next stage of the value chain. Yeah. So let me know if you're not sure, and then we can discuss that. And then one of the main benefits is the superior coordination. Because everything is done in one company and it's under one ownership, it's very easier for managers to coordinate between different groups as opposed to having to talk to a different company that may have a different culture of communication and styles. Okay, so that's the benefits of vertical integration. Now I'll talk about the cost of vertical integration. So one major cost is there's a different optimal scale of production at different activities or different activities in a different value chain. So whatever is optimal for one activity, one stage may not be optimal for the other stage. So let's say in stage 1 you have to produce million items in order to be efficient, but then in the stage 2 you don't need million items to be produced. So you may produce a lot in the first stage to make it optimal, but then that production may not be most optimal in the second stage. So there may be a waste there. So that's the differences in optimal scale of production. And it inhibits development of distinctive capabilities. So basically, you're going to outsource different activities to somewhere else. So you may lose out on your ability to develop something unique for yourself, right? So you're letting others develop something for you. Therefore, you're going to limit yourself in development. Other thing too is it's very difficult to manage different things. So every activity is at a different stage may have a different optimal way of managing the business. Controlling for steel production may be very different from controlling for retail and distribution of the steel, right? So there are different ways to control for different businesses, and if you do everything in one, you may not be most optimal in doing that. So there's other thing called incentive problems. There may be an incentive problem. So let's think about car and auto shop. If an auto company, let's say Ford makes the car and Ford also sells the car in a dealer shop, and the customer who bought the car has a problem with the car, right? And then they call the customer service and say, hey, there's an issue with the car. And then customer service may say, hey, it's not my fault, it's the manufacturer's fault. Right? And then when customer calls the manufacturer may say, it's not my fault, it's the seller's fault. So when everything is done in one company, it's very difficult to pinpoint whose fault it is. So there's an incentive problems with that. Whereas if you outsource the dealership activities, every reliability will be on the dealership as opposed to the producers. Okay, and also there's a limitation in flexibility. It's very difficult to respond to demand fluctuation and different changes in the future. And also there's a compounding of risk because everything is integrated. If one activity has an issue, it might affect the other activities. Any questions? Okay, so this is the value chain for steel cans. So like I said, the company does not have to be totally integrated. You can decide to do market contracts at the backward integration, and then you may do yourself forward integration. So at different activities and different stages of activity, a firm may decide to do a contract or vertically integrate. So the point here is, when I talk about vertical integration, it doesn't mean that every part of the activity and value chain has to be integrated. Okay, and we're going to look at the factors why some of the stages are vertically integrated, while the others are linked by market transactions. So anyone want to guess what are some of the factors and why, let's say, iron ore mining to steel production is done by market contracts as opposed to can making and canning of food and distribution is done by vertical integration?
Probably has to be done on a much larger scale to be like viable.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like the imbalance that we spoke about as.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe there are more safety liabilities in iron and ore mining than in can making.
Okay, so it's better to specialize.
Yeah.
Yeah. Randy, did you have a thought?
They're also like pretty related to
Uh-huh.
some extent, so it's easier to be optimized.
Yes, so relation is related activities matters in the vertical integration. So here's a chart that I put out to kind of guide you in deciding whether it's best to integrate or not integrate. So let's discuss a few of the points. How many firms are available to transact with? So if there are only limited number of firms, It's better to do vertical integration because there may be disinformation, like asymmetry in information and lack of competition. So if there are a lot of companies doing some type of activities, there's competition and price is already reduced. Whereas if there's a smaller number of companies and the activity is monopolized, it's very likely that you're going to eat up a lot of cost that's being incurred by that business. So other thing that matters is, let's say, so the similarity of different stages. If one stage is very similar to other stage, you may have efficiency by doing two things by yourself. Whereas if two stages are totally unrelated, you'll have much higher cost in order to develop the capabilities to do two different things, as opposed to when they're similar, you don't need to have much cost in order to do two different but very similar activities together. Okay. Any question on this chart or some of the parts that you might want an explanation on? Okay, so we're going to go over the case that has to discuss this and then make a choice between vertical integration and outsourcing at the later half of the presentation. So if you are uncertain, and then we'll go over that by the case study and then see more of a real life example of this chart. Okay, so there are multiple types of vertical relationships. So notice that I didn't say vertical integration. So based on the degree of commitment and the formalization, there are different types of vertical relationship. So when the degree of commitment is very high, but the formalization is very low, you would have the vertical integration. But let's say if you want to commit very less to a certain activity, you would want to do spot sales or purchase. That's like a short-term contract, right? So if you want to sell something and that is for a one-time sale, and you don't want to commit your resources to selling and marketing that product, you might want to go for spot sales as opposed to vertical integration, where you would have to develop a whole new capabilities, right? So we're going to discuss some of these different types of vertical relationship. One is long-term contracts, franchisees, and then supplier-customer partnerships, and discuss what are some of the, under what context are these vertical relationships beneficial. Okay. So first one that we're going to look at is the long-term contracts. When are long-term contracts beneficial as opposed to something else? Yeah.
When you're working under competitive conditions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool, yeah.
When you want a high degree of control.
Okay. Okay. One more thought. Those are all valid thoughts. Julia?
If it's over a long period of time.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So long-term contracts are useful when there is a transaction-specific investment, right? So if you're certain on what you're going to do for a long term, and it's a long period of time, you might want to do the long-term contract. What long-term contracts help you with, it helps you avoid the opportunism and the security for commitment, right? So long-term contract is obviously a long-term commitment, so you're going to be more secure about whether your contract business will going to bail out or not. Okay, so it is less flexible to changing circumstances. So in any given company, any given market and industry, there is a market is uncertain, and then future may be uncertain, and there may be a change of environment. Because they're not really bounded, they're just a different contract, they may have a different interpretation of the changes, right? So then there may be misinterpretation of each other's intentions and each other's goals. So usually in the long-term contracts, there's an arbitrator between the two companies to make sure that when different things happen, when the environment changes, we're going to go with A, B, or C. So they usually make that contract beforehand, before doing the long-term contracts. What about vertical partnership? When do you do vertical partnerships, and what's it beneficial for? So vertical partnership is more of like more of like business partners as opposed to you do this and I do that. So it's more of like we are together in this kind of way. Yeah.
Could it be when you're entering a new market or a new country, so if your partners are already established there, they can help you set up your business?
That makes sense, yeah. Any other thought? So like you said, like usually vertical partnerships work best if you don't have a specific investment that you're going to do. So let's say you're entering into a new company or new market or a new different geographical location. You're not sure how the future will unfold. That's why you don't have a specific complete contract, so you're going to play by the year. That's when the vertical partnership really works well, and it works well when it's based on trust and mutual understanding as opposed to authoritative, you do this and I do this. And then because it's a partnership, you're more flexible to changing circumstances and environment. Okay, any questions on this? Okay, so lastly, franchising. When do you use franchising and how is it beneficial? Yeah.
If you want to grow quickly as like a company at a low cost, you can just franchise. So other people take the cost to open the businesses and run under your company name.
Okay, that's perfect. So franchising, what is franchising basically is like you are given the permissions to use a brand, marketing capabilities, and business systems. So by using the franchising, you have advantage of both vertical integration because your franchisee is basically operating under your brand and they're obligated to report to you. So there's a benefit of vertical integration. You're kind of like same company, but at the same time, it allows you to take the advantage of the contracts. Your franchisees can be very flexible because of their own ownership, and then they can understand market better than the corporate because depending on the location of the franchise, the environment may be different. So that's the benefit of the franchising. So any question on these three different types of vertical relationships? Okay, so in summary, every company wants to create value in vertical activities. So in order to create value, you need to be better than your competitors in two things. First, you need to be better than your competitors in determining whether you want to conduct activities internally or externally. So you will have to figure out whether it's beneficial to do internal vertical integration versus the external outsourcing. And once you decided whether you're going to develop or you're going to make or buy, you need to have a tight control along the tight coordination along the activities in the value chain. Okay. Questions? Okay. So there are two main issues in designing the vertical relationship. First, the company has to decide the objective for vertical coordinations. To put it differently, what are the efficiencies, risk sharing, and market advantage that is being sought by a company when deciding whether to do vertical relation, when they're deciding what to do in the vertical relationship. The second issue is choosing the organizational form. So we discussed different types of vertical relationships. So the company has to choose whether they're going to do a long-term contracts, joint ventures, mergers and acquisitions, and etc. that best achieves the desired objectives that's raised in issue number 1. So these are two things that companies are mainly focused when they want to design their vertical relationships. Okay, so there are a few other things that also company want to concentrate on. So basically, the company want to know what their resources, capabilities, and their current strategy are before deciding what to do. So think about Jara. Jara is very vertically integrated. They do everything from the knitting into the retail, manufacturing, designing, and everything. So, but think about the capability of Jara. So they have the capability to turn things fast. So they are known for fast cycle, new fashion, and then being able to develop new fashion. And also they have tight integration between manufacturers, design, and retails that make them available to do vertical integration as opposed to outsourcing. Also, firm has to decide the allocation of risk. How much risk do firm want to bear? So it's about commitment that firm wants to make. If they don't want a lot of risk, they may be better off doing the short-term or long-term contract as opposed to vertical integration. So this all depends on bargaining power. If the company has low bargaining power, and then they're likely to bear all the risk by themselves, maybe they want to choose a vertical relationship that may minimize the risk for themselves. Okay. And also, incentive structures matter. Is there a potential for opportunistic behavior? If that's the case, you might want to think about something else other than the vertical integration that is very prone to the problems of incentive structures. Okay. All right, so here are some of the recent trends in vertical relationship. Basically, what the recent trend is going from vertical integration to the outsourcing and more of a partnership than a contract, right? So you can think about vertical integration to outsourcing in IT, diffusion of franchising and technological partnership. IBM, Apple made a partnership, Canon and HP are examples. So the trend here is boundaries between firms and markets are becoming more blurred, meaning that there's less of a vertical integration and contracts and more of partnership and business alliances than anything else. Okay? So I'm going to go over and do the Kahoot test. So if you win, there are only 3 questions, so it's hard to tell who will win. But if you win, I'll bring a candy for next time. How's that? All right. Nope, nope. Okay, so come in and join the Kahoot. So these questions kind of reflect how I do my quiz. Naughty nicknames, be aware. Okay, so we have everyone in class, so let's start the quiz. And I promise there's no false answer this time. Okay, so which of the following is not the scope of corporate strategy?
Oh, I clicked the wrong one.
Okay. Almost everyone got it right. Okay.
Kimberly, get him.
Okay, Kimberly, you can do it. Under what conditions is outsourcing more favorable than vertical integration? Okay, the right answer is uncertainty in market demand. So if you don't know what the demand's going to unfold, you might want to try out shorter term contracts to test the market.
Isn't it also, if you need like, isn't it also transaction specific investment?
If the, so I think we discussed whether the activities are transaction specific, it's better off to vertically integrate because your decision would matter a lot on what other firm does, so other firm can take advantage of what you do. Okay. So I think the response or explanations to this is very well illustrated in the textbook on the steel production example. So if you're unsure, I'll take a look at that. Okay, I think Kimberly, you got all the questions. You just need to
I know, I
Click
just need to be
faster,
faster.
All right, so last question is, which of the following is not part of the cost of vertical integration?
I tried to go too fast.
Okay, so the correct answer is superior coordination. It's better when you have vertical. So when you have vertical integration, it's easier to coordinate because everything is done in the same company under one ownership. So let's look at who won. Did you get this right, Kimberly?
No, I went too fast.
Did you get it right, Blake?
I did,
Okay, so the first one is Blake. Who got vertical what? Okay, Magnus, okay. All right, so I'll give you candies to all three of you next time. So Blake is on fire. Vertical what? Okay, so having said that, why don't we take a 10-minute break, and then when we come back, we're gonna do the case of American Apparel, vertically integrated in downtown LA. So I hope this is more interactive and you guys participate a little better in this because I didn't have any group assigned to this. So if you haven't read the case, it's very short, so during the break you can kind of go through them and then we'll discuss this after the break. Okay, so let's get started with the American Apparel case. So how many of you are familiar with the brand of American Apparel? How many of you wear it while growing up? How many of you has American Apparel clothes?
Not a lot, but I've shopped there before.
Okay, like when did you shop though? Like what ages was that?
I was probably like 15.
Okay, so roughly like 10 years ago?
Yeah, like
So-
more like 6 years ago.
Okay. Do you guys know whether they're still in business?
I thought they were.
Huh?
I thought they were.
Do you-
They're not
do you
really
I
over
think
here.
they were.
There's
I
not
think
really
you
a lot
can
over
order
here.
stuff online.
Yeah, they're
I had
mainly
shopped
online.
there when I had gone on a trip to New York, and there
Yeah.
was one there.
They're only in big cities or
And I
online.
had, yeah, I had.
Right. So when I was in college, that was like 10 years ago, and then I think that's when they're really growing. So a lot of college campuses had American Apparel clothes. And then like most of the college students will be wearing American Apparel clothes. I see many similar clothes or same clothes made by American Apparel. They're not cheap, but they do have their distinct styles and like vivid colors and like more of a gender-friendly design and stuff like that. So we're going to analyze why they had emerged into one of the better retail stores to how they resulted in a bankruptcy, right? So they filed for bankruptcy in 2014, I believe, and they're still in business, but I don't think I see many shops anymore, but you can still order them online under new ownership. So everything has changed pretty much, but there aren't that many shops to look American Apparel. Okay, so here we're going to apply what we learned in the first half of the presentation and discuss and analyze the cost and benefits of the vertical integration. Obviously, American Apparel is a good example. They used the vertical integration and didn't work out. And then we're going to discuss how vertical integration can be actually a source of differentiation. And lastly, we're going to look at the financial statements and determine and what are the sources of poor financial performance and recommend suggestions to turn around those poor performances. Okay, so here are my case questions. So the textile clothing is usually, on average, is very de-integrated industry, and we're going to look at why it is the case, and look at American Apparel strategy, and what role does vertical integration play in their strategy. And finally, look at their strategic issues that they're facing and make recommendations to hopefully have them turn around their poor financial performances and emerge into one of the better retail stores again. Okay, so first question, vertically de-integrated structure of the industry. So let's go through how the t-shirt is being made. So what are some of the stages that are required in order to have a t-shirt? So first of all, what do you guys think is the first stage of a t-shirt?
Cotton.
Yeah.
You gotta pick or like grow the raw materials, like cotton,
Okay.
silk.
So cotton manufacturing is the first one. And what do you do with the raw materials of cotton? What's the second stage?
Turn it to thread.
Yeah, so you gotta do cotton spinning to make it into some kind of a form before you knead it. And next stage?
Then you package it and send it to a manufacturing facility.
There's one stage before that. Yeah, so you just have to knead it, right? So you have a cotton and then you put into some kind of a form and you have to knead it. And then next you want to design. What do you want to do next? So your t-shirt is designed, what do you want to do next once your t-shirt is designed? Yeah, they simply make it, right? So you manufacture it by cutting and sewing. And then what do you do afterwards?
Packet?
You market it, right? So you want to make sure that
Oh.
So you want to make sure that you know your customers know that you're making such product. So next, what do you do after you market your products? Okay, basically you sell them. So there's two ways of selling it, right? So you can sell it in wholesales, and also you can print it and then have it delivered to consumers. And then the last stage, obviously, is the retailing, right? So wholesale stage is pretty much selling the clean white t-shirt into another brand that's going to print their own brand and do the printing. So you're selling it to some random brands, other brands, and retailing, so it could go directly to here, or it could go through here. But retailing basically is selling your own goods under your own brand and design. Okay, yeah, question?
So is distribution not like a big part of the value chain for a t-shirt?
So I would say distribution is a big part of the value chain, so it'll probably happen somewhere along here, right? If it does.
Over there and then probably also before retail?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you think about how American Apparel does it, they kind of skip the stage. But anyways, the distribution I don't think distribution is a major part of the manufacturing here, because it's not difficult to distribute, right? So it's not the main cost of distribution, right? It's so cheap to distribute. Let's say 1,000 or 1,000,000 t-shirts, it doesn't take much to distribute that. As opposed to, when you're distributing car parts, it's much more difficult and then complicated in order to do that.
Makes sense.
Okay.
That's pretty.
Do you have a confusion there?
Yeah, I just don't get what printing is.
So printing is like basically printing your logo.
But isn't that part of like the design and actually making it?
Design is actually designing on a computer.
Oh, so just like the style of the shirt?
Yeah. So like whatever you're
So
wearing.
wouldn't you want to print before you would wholesale too?
No, wholesaling is selling it as it is, like
we're talking about not just American Apparel here. Like a t-shirt, never mind.
So usually a lot of companies, a lot of wholesaling happens outside the country, in the third world countries, where they just print out, where they just manufacture t-shirt, and then a lot of brands buy the blank t-shirt, and then they put their logo, and then that's how they make their margin, right? Sell it at an expensive price. Okay, so probably like expensive brands like Gucci, Armani, or those guys buy from some third world countries at a lower cost, and then they put their logo and do their finishing around it, and then sell it to customers. Okay. Very clear on this part? Okay. So let's look at where do these activities take place, right? So where do you think cotton growing happens for the most part? Yeah. India, yeah. America, yes. China, right, and Pakistan. So U.S. is also a major places where they grow cotton. So there are 4 places that are major places of cotton growing. What about cotton spinning, making it into a form? Yeah. China.
Indonesia.
India, right? Pakistan and Turkey is one of them. How about cotton textiles, making into something that's a physical form in textiles?
China.
China. Indonesia. So these are all, usually these are all from third world countries or emerging economies where the cost of labor is relatively cheaper, right? So cotton garments as well, 4 major countries are China, India, Brazil, and Turkey. So if you look at the logo of your t-shirt, a lot of them will probably say China, Turkey, India, to a certain degree US. And if you're wearing really expensive clothes, they might say Italy or Spain. But most of the times, I know my t-shirt or my shirt is made from China, right? So these activities usually take place in emerging economies. That's the point. So let's look at the type of firms that are positioned around this value chain. So what are type of firms that do, what do you call the people that do cotton growing?
Farmers?
Farmers, yes. So farmers, and then there are cotton spinners, cotton knitters. So this is where American Apparel and Zara, the vertically integrated companies, what they do is they take on the cotton spin, like the products from cotton spinners, raw materials from cotton spinners, and they knead it by themselves. They design themselves, manufacture themselves, market, wholesale, printing, and retail. So they do pretty much everything except for the very few stages of the value chain. So they don't actually go and collect their own cotton, but from the raw materials, they do everything together. And then if you look at, that's confusing. So who does the Okay, so the major producers, so usually a lot of the wholesales happen from the major producers, right? Hanes, Fruit of the Room, etc. Some cheap and then lower cost t-shirts that you can get at the retail stores are usually from these brands. So they only design, manufacture, market, and do the wholesale, and maybe printing, but they don't go into retails. So also you can think about the brands like Gap, H&M, and Benetton. So they do their own design, but they have their designed products manufactured at a third world country or emerging economies, and then they do their own marketing and then retailing, but they outsource the other stuff, right? So this chain tells you under what conditions do firms outsource and under what conditions firms do vertical integrations. Okay, any questions on this chart? Okay, are we clear? Okay. So here are some of the reasons why firms would choose to de-integrate, or why the firms would choose to outsource as opposed to vertically integrate. So we see a lot of outsourcing from manufacturing and wholesaling. Part of the reason why is because there are so many firms, so many suppliers and demands, right? There are so many companies and countries that are willing to produce at a lower cost, and there's so many buyers that are willing to buy at a lower cost. So the information on how much it is to produce the cotton is very clear, right? So a lot of it has to do with the cheaper cost and the number of suppliers and demands and availability of information outside of the country and within the country. But if you look at where do retail or t-shirt companies do vertical integration, is a lot of it is design and marketing and printing, right? So a lot of companies, and these are they're very similarly integrated and they're related activities, right? So the companies want to make sure that they do their own design and marketing by themselves, and then selling it at a retail store by themselves, because they're similarly related activities, and then they want to build their differentiation by doing things by themselves, okay? So this chart will be useful in determining whether at each stage you want to do outsourcing or you want to do vertical integration. Okay. Okay. So let's look at American Apparel's strategy and the role of vertical integration in forming their strategy. So here are the two questions that I want to get into. So we'll look at what's the basic strategy of American Apparel and where do their competitive advantage come from. And second, what is the reason that American Apparel defies industry convention of outsourcing and pursue the vertical integration, right? So a lot of companies do outsourcing, but American Apparel chose vertical integration for some reason, and we're going to investigate why that's the case. All right, so let's look at this. So why do people buy t-shirts, right? So there are different reasons, and then it has shifted a little bit throughout the years of why people buy their t-shirts. So what do you think are the initial motives of buying a t-shirt? Why did people start to wear a t-shirt in, let's say, 100 years ago or 70 years ago?
To wear.
Protection from the sun.
Yeah. So it's more of like undergarment, right? So it's just the basic essentials to maybe wear something underneath your shirt or jacket. Just more of a practical needs and essential needs, right? And for a certain degree, people wore it, the workers wore it as to protect yourself. So a lot of companies like Dick Kids or Carhartt made their t-shirt very thick so that they can get some protection from the working environment. But recently, people started to wear t-shirt. Here's an example of Gucci, where you want to show your lifestyle, you want to establish yourself and differentiate yourself, and to express who you are as a person by wearing something else from a certain designer, right? So, how did American Apparel target? So, I don't know if you have been to American Apparel store, they have many different colors, right? They go from sunshine to dark heather gray, asphalt slate. Some of these colors you'll probably not see in most of the retail stores that sells t-shirts, right? So these are very vivid colors, like banana. I don't think I've ever worn a t-shirt that's in banana colors. Neither did I see a banana colored t-shirt other than the store in American Apparel. But they wanted to appeal to different segments of customers, and then express themselves as something else. Okay, so like I said, they have many different colors, and they do a lot of marketing that may be provocative and then may be insensitive. But this has changed promotion or marketing from American Apparel. I didn't want to pull the old image of how American Apparel marketed themselves, but it's apparent in the textbook and in the cases that American Apparel's used very sexually insensitive ways to advertise themselves. So if you Google it, you'll find a lot of images that maybe kind of make you kind of like insensitive, like make you think that they're very insensitive in how they market their t-shirts. Okay, so that you can find that out at your own time. But basically, how they advertise themselves is by design. So particularly with regards to the fit, basically in a traditional sense, in a conventional sense, t-shirt was something that you wear as an undergarment or something you wear to work. So it used to be very loose and didn't have much style to it. American Apparel come in and they design a t-shirt that's more fitting to you and has a different types of fit. And second, they have very, like I showed in the previous slide, they have multiple colors that may not fit, that is not conventional to most of the companies. And then lastly, by lifestyle, they wanted to express that their items are more urban and artsy culture with sexual liberalism and then politically conscious. So it's more of a left-of-center social and political consciousness that they wanted to show through their designer clothes. So I broke down American Apparel's strategy into two parts, right? So the corporate strategy of the scope and then the business strategy of how. So if you look at the corporate strategy, so there's a product scope, which is their core business lines, right? So it started with t-shirt and it expanded into multiple things, right? Tank tops, underwear, short jeans, socks, bags. And then what about their vertical scope? They do design, manufacture, from knitting, cutting, sewing, wholesale, retailing, right? So from pretty much basic supplies of cotton, they do everything by themselves. And their geographic scope, it started in LA in the United States, and it expanded into Europe and some Asian countries and even South American countries. So that's their geographical scope. And then let's look at their business strategy. So their business strategy is selling an item that's simple, but at a higher quality at a higher price, right? So they wanted to differentiate themselves by saying that we sell a high quality product, right? So here's the basis for differentiation. Obviously quality is one, and then intangible differentiation is appealing to young adults that are looking for more of a metropolitan look, casual, coolness look, whatever that means. But so they had music, graffiti, alternative lifestyle designs on their products. And then they had fast cycle product development. So so they had about 6 to 8 weeks cycle of new products, whereas industry on average it took about 6 months to change into different products. So they had really fast cycle of the new product development, and LA is the core of the operations. and their business strategy. So their strategy was coherent, so strategic fit was there because CEO and the company reflected the brand's values and identity, right? Any question on their strategy? So I think this is what I expect when I ask you for, so let's say for the final exam, I'll ask you for company strategy. I expect you to go into their corporate strategy and business strategy and be able to identify for corporate strategy their scope and business strategies, their ways of differentiations and other issues that may relate to competitive advantage. Okay. And if we have time, I think I'll go over one more case in the exam review to tackle more into how to find the strategy of company and make a recommendation. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the role of vertical integration to American Apparel strategy and competitive advantage. What do you think are the role of vertical integration and the tangible factors in the quality? Yeah.
Well, they have more control over what materials are going directly into it rather than subcontracting it out.
Okay. So it's easier for them to do a quality check, right? So what else? Julia?
Isn't like tangible factors in how they are made?
Yeah, so something that's visible, right? So they're doing everything from almost the raw materials into design, manufacturing, and to the retail. So just pick one of the value chain activities that is in their benefit because they're doing it by themselves.
They can design as they want, so they have like tighter t-shirts
Yes.
rather than the loose fit t-shirts.
Yes, so they can have the control of their design. Catherine, did you have a thought?
I don't know if this would fall under tangible factors,
Mhm.
but that they can do it faster.
Yeah. Yeah, speed. Yeah, speed is a factor, yes. Okay, so here are some of the factors, right? So they can control over their quality because they do everything themselves. They know what's going into their products that's being made. And then they can control over the retail environment in which AA product is being sold and displayed. So I think the CEO actually were very picky about where they pick the store locations, right? And then control over design. So because they're doing the design by themselves, they had different designs that kind of express the LA look or the metropolitan look. And then innovation in marketing is also a factor. So they use amateur models where even a lot of employees were their own models in order to break out the conventional marketing method where they had to hire someone that's famous in order to market themselves, right? So they're very innovative in marketing. And like I said, speed is a factor. Product cycle for American Apparel was usually 6 to 8 weeks, whereas on an average it used to be 6 months to get a new product in. Okay, so let's look at the intangible factors. So because they're vertically integrated in downtown LA, they could have the urban culture and the cool factor. And then they're emphasizing their sweatshop-free production. So everything is being made in the United States and in LA, where we treat them very, very well. And then we know how we're treating them. Yeah.
They also make stuff in Central America.
Really?
Yeah.
Which part?
In Honduras.
Okay.
That they give them, like, as part of their sweat-free production and ethical manufacturing, they give them, like, health insurance. And that's, like, their whole thing, how they're, like, trying to be ethical is like they're supporting the workers there.
So I think, well, if that's the case, I think their whole idea of sweatshop-free production is they're saying that we treat our employers really well. Part of the reason why they ended up going bankrupt was the high cost of employee contracts. I think in the case they were paying their lowest paid employees or twice the minimum wage, pretty much, and they're giving the healthcare benefits for themselves and even for their family. And then also they had massage shops within the company, like within the factory and stuff like that. Also, their political stance was left-leaning, like left-center leaning, and they're emphasizing on immigrants' rights. And then in some instances, they're hiring illegal immigrants, and that caused some of the problems. but what they wanted to say basically was, we're a fair company that we produce in downtown LA, and then we're treating our employees very well, right? And then that's reflected in their notion of we are downtown LA manufacturing company. Okay. So we'll go over the strategic issues and the recommendation. I gave you the financial statements for you guys to go through those financial statements as a group, as how you're sitting, and then we'll reconvene in maybe 10 minutes to discuss how are they doing financially and make some recommendations. So on the chart I included the sales and operating profit, and then financial results for the first 6 months, and then financial statement. And here's a chart that I didn't include it, but I want you guys to see. That's the cotton prices, right? So as you can see, there has been an increase in cotton price, and then although it's decreased, the trend is that it is going up, and this is the cotton price in the United States. So why don't you get in as a group, and then we'll reconvene in maybe 10 minutes to discuss some of the factors that I'm looking for at the financial statements. Okay?
I'm like, I did see on this one that their sales have been going down. I mean, their sales are like steadily going up. Yeah, their sales are going up and their costs. Oh shit. Fuck, it's backwards.
It's also on for 28, 20, 28.
No, it's on.
For a shirt with no.
Yeah. Wait, I have a question. This is just a what? Change in case to Japan. Is that in the old book?
No.
Probably not, right?
That's what it should be. It's in this one right here.
But do you have to order a shirt?
I'm sure it is. If not, I'll just take a picture of it and send it to you. Okay, then sales have only 3 pages. So sales have gone up.
What do you mean you're looking at it back right now?
So like it's 2014 to 2008.
Yeah.
I thought it was like 2008 to 2014.
Yeah. That's so small.
But didn't they file for bankruptcy in 2014? They filed for bankruptcy in 2013, but that's just a way to like reallocate like your stock and shit. Like you can still operate.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it now.
That's true. I think it's like as like what you think. Yeah, I should just like have that. I have a book right here. Like for my
Only focus too much on the U.S. by emphasizing that it's U.S. made product.
It doesn't
and
say
they
what
knew
their
that
costs
their prices couldn't compete internationally because they're paying more to produce things, and then people realize they were
So try to look for like
blank shirt with nothing on it.
also look for like segments.
Because if they're gonna pay for
What
a
parts
product
are
that's
gonna
not branded, then they're gonna want
so
the
they can
cheaper
make
one.
recommendations.
That still has
If you
good
look at
quality.
two different
Yeah, like
segments
how
and
is
see
their
what's
cost?
performing well, what's
their sales
and they look into their cost and
Yeah, they have the same quality.
the cash that they have to pay. What are we doing here?
It doesn't say like what their manufacturing costs are.
So those will probably go under selling and distribution expenses. And
This
then-
is so small. This is so small.
Yeah, I know. I have to be cheap and save some trees. You guys can share.
Well, they have the book.
Yeah, we have,
Okay.
is this, when was this book like printed? Was it like
I would say like 2016.
2016? Because it has up to 2014, but I'm trying to like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what it would be like now.
Also,
What did you say manufacturing costs fell under?
it was
Selling and
the selling and
distribution.
distribution expenses. So also look into their different segments, right? So if you look at table 6, it'll tell you which segment that they're doing well, and then table 7 will tell you like the geographical distribution of sales.
Like H&M Fellowship.
Table 6 is the one with the American Apparel Financial.
Oh, and it says, it has defined, it says before corporate expense, interest, other income, public card charges. So I still know that's different.
Because profit is what they have left after paying for all of that.
Oh, and then operating is like less.
Operating costs that they have before they pay.
So the question is like, look into their financial performance and trying to see if you can identify some of the factors that they're doing not doing well and recommend a way that they can
Gross profit looks good.
I searched on other technologies, but they only have a online store.
Oh, they closed down all the stores?
Yeah, but they're talking about opening up one where it all started again.
Yeah, I mean, I personally saw, I personally know maybe 3-4 American tourists.
Well, at least you didn't say, when you said where's Holland, I said,
The British one.
so.
How are you doing?
Because they did sell a lot of stuff.
Oh, that's when they have their new studio. Yeah,
They still charge so high of a
Oh, is
price.
it still expensive?
Yeah.
I mean, but they're still making it in the
I think
American
it's, you're right, I
soil,
think
and
they filed for
then
bankruptcy.
the labor cost in the United States is
Oh,
much
no, it
higher,
was
so
2015.
they're gonna have a hard time reducing the cost unless they try to go to a different country.
I wouldn't want to pay $20 for a plain shirt and
Yeah.
get that from H&M for like $5 or
Yeah,
That's why I'm really
So look into the segment analysis, where they're doing, where they're not. And also
The thing is, like, it doesn't say anything about the wholesale. It's all about the retail stores.
US wholesale seems to be.
I would say so.
Yeah, like the tables do, but like the actual keys to be like about the
Because like given the
wholesale,
sales
say
range,
retail, wholesale, distribution.
It's not like Gucci or other designer brands. Get like a Supreme shirt.
Well, I'm just saying that their gross profit was.
Buy one of the Fruit of the Loom and then make a Gucci design and just print it and put it on my shirt.
Yeah, it's not okay.
I mean, if it's just one shirt.
My friend's back home this week. First time in the screen during business, so I get like
There's this one for $20. It's probably fake, but
It's stuff.
it looks real. No, I bought it from Gucci for like $500.
So yeah, so once you guys look into the financial data, look into, like, think about, generate some ideas on why their performance has declined. So maybe jot down some ideas on the factors that resulted in a decline in performance, and based on that, provide your recommendations. and then what that means, what implication does it has on American Apparel's choice to the vertical implication, vertical integration.
But like, I think it's 14 or report, I think it's now like it is 2019, so like what happened?
I think just pretending like it's 2014. Because I think it's just gone down.
Yeah, because sales have gone up. I mean, I'm looking at just pretending it's 2018 right now, sales have gone up. Operating profit has gone down.
Well, if they're still.
The only thing I saw was in table 4, the long-term debt.
Sell that side.
Increased significantly from like 12 to 13.
The increase?
Yeah, the long-term debt.
Because they're probably not going to companies.
Significant. That's probably table 4.
I just say it, but they should probably cut some salaries.
Yeah, but they just don't sell well. They probably don't. They shouldn't sell
Because like the thing is their sales, it looks like their sales and their gross profit have been pretty steady, but like then their operating income. Okay, so operating income is like
Yeah.
the profit minus your costs. So they've got like,
No.
their costs must have gone like way up, and their sales
Yeah.
were like steady.
Chinese apparel and then.
So costs went up and sales were steady.
Costs went up, but that yeah, sales were steady and costs went up. Their operating costs, so they weren't making money on it. And they were
Operating
incurring,
costs went up.
yeah, and their debt was going up. So
At
then
least they'll be like
their operating income was like,
true to their name. Like if they name
Because, like,
themselves
they made
Chinese
more in
apparel, no
sales
one
in
says, oh, we make
2014
ourselves in China.
than they
just
did
like
in
hide it in the little
2008
thing.
and had
Made
almost the
it.
same,
The operating income,
like,
Yeah,
like,
you don't advertise
kind of
it, but
increase in 2013, it fell, then it increased again.
yeah.
yeah, and for worth.
Their operating income was increasing, same time their debt was increasing. So their profit decreased. Right, is that what thing? Well, their profit, like just their sales minus their like, the cost of the things that they sold. That's like the gross profit.
They're selling
They were selling a lot of stuff and had like a decent profit margin, but then like the operating income, that's like profit minus your operating costs. So like employee salaries, like rent, stuff like that. Once they subtract like all of that, like the number is much lower. Yeah. Then they have like much less operating income.
No,
So like their
other people
operating
don't care, it's just
expenses
America
went
that
way
cares.
up.
If
But
you go to Europe,
Depends
like,
on what you got.
their
Some people like other cultures, just the way we like other
no, yeah, but I'm
So,
saying
but I
that
don't know
if
how-
Americans are wearing it,
like
then
what made their
other people
operating
will wear
expenses
it.
go up so much?
But
If they
the
weren't
other
doing
people don't
this?
care where it's made, they just care that the people are
Are
wearing
they
it.
just
So
producing
the goal is to get people to wear
They
those
own the
things.
manufacturers, so they can cost cut.
The cost of cotton, remember he put a price on the cost of cotton.
It went up for a little bit.
Way up, way up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's come together in maybe 3 minutes.
And I don't even think, I think that would have been included in gross profit actually, because cotton would have been included in the cost of the t-shirt.
Cotton went up, there was nothing they should do about that.
I mean, it depends on what you
Cuts in their,
in the pricing.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, but that's already, like the cost of cotton is already included in
Well,
the
they're
gross
already
profit.
exporting. Like it's,
Because that would have been
I
included in
think
the
one
price,
other
but they
thing
didn't make
What are we doing here?
sales comes from UK.
No, but they had a
No, but they've already accounted for
That
that
would
cost.
be, that
They
wouldn't
sell a
be in
lot.
profit.
Okay.
Hi guys, doing
No, but that's like sales, like the profit is your sales minus the cost.
Yeah.
So like the price of the
Is
t-shirt
it foreign or international?
minus the cost of the
They're not even
manufacturer
selling more
materials
US.
of t-shirt.
Cost.
So that's already like
Can you
accounted
talk about,
for.
like, what's your
They're
recommendation?
selling almost as many international than in the
American
US.
Apparel's choice of vertical.
International market.
So can you recommend something else? How does that
Is to cut their operating costs.
There's no long term. What about geographically? What do you think about that?
What exactly made like their operating costs go way up?
The profits?
I don't remember reading anything that like explained why their operating costs
They're negative
went up
25
so
million,
much.
so
I think part
try
of
to
the
make at least
reason
like
is
10 million next year and then
the
just
common
go.
price for it. That's a different cost, but and it doesn't say it in the case, but I think part of the reason is when you have so many different stores, and like in 2009 there were like 75 stores in 17 countries. So in order for, and it's all under the same ownership, right? So in order for one guy to control, let's imagine like 75 companies, you would have to travel a lot of times. You'd have to make sure that they're all well trained and they all fit into the value of American Apparel.
Okay, it's like expansion.
Yeah, I think that part, it doesn't really say it in the case, but part of the reason at least one part of it is the expansion and making it more complex because they're expanding into different product lines too.
Okay.
Right, so they have different size coming out, different apparels, and so expansion will definitely do different scopes of business.
Traditional. Or maybe not.
Off the record, did you
But they
have
still
stored
do
on
that.
eating machines?
No.
It's on the record. Oh, it's on the record.
I know. I heard what he said. Did you have to?
But like, if you search up American Apparel, yeah, I got the first picture is literally.
Is this like March Madness? Will someone tell me the answers? We've got one at work.
My brother's a big Duke fan.
Did it already start?
No, it's not there.
Bracket.
They're literally just playing.
I haven't made a bracket since the Yeah, but so I have to make it before Thursday.
Watch basketball. It's only just hearing talk and I make brackets.
I'm gonna make this bracket.
One time, my religion teacher in high school, she was like, I'll give you guys extra credit if you make a bracket, like you go so far. I was like, that's how I got into it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it changes based on what you're using. So like if you're a Microsoft.
Yeah, if you want to try I have this one friend who has Florida yogurt teacher every year. Because they're like, I go here, so I go not okay.
Oh, really?
Like my friends, the manager for Duke, and guys have the net. Isn't that cool?
And that's every single.
Okay, guys, let's come in as a class and then wrap the case. Okay. Okay. So let's look at the this financial statements together. Okay. So what is the takeaway from these figures, right? Their sales and operating profit. Yeah.
So the first one, the nominal value of their sales, so 600 million in 2014, like that's not a lot at all. So they have to be a relatively small player to start off with, and on top of that, they're also, negative after 2010 for the most part. So
Of the operating profit?
Yeah. So in short, they're not doing well.
Okay.
Like they're in a very highly competitive industry, just not doing well.
Okay. Kimberly?
Okay, so their sales are going up, but their operating profit is going down, which means that their operating costs went up more than their sales did.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair statement. So basically their sales is, let's say, static pretty much throughout the course of the years, but then their operating profit has gone down. So that rings a bell, right? There's something going on with the cost of the operations. Yeah?
And if they're like a vertically integrated company, like they have some control over their costs. So
Well, remember, so you have to remember where the vertical integration starts for American Apparel, right? So they don't produce their own cotton, right? So the vertical integration of American starts from the kneading of the cotton that they buy from the cotton farmers. So the cotton cost is something that's difficult to control for American Apparel, right? Especially since they're getting it from the United States.
That was 2010. The price spiked really high for snake on cotton.
Yeah. So I think this is not a coincidence that the profit in 2010 went really down because of the cotton price being spiked up on the 2010. Okay. So basically, what's the takeaway from 2014 and 2015, the financial results? Is that they're not really doing well. They're operating at a loss of an operating profit and loss of net income, right? So they're operating still, but they're not doing well, pretty much, right? So what is the takeaway from the selected financial data for American Apparel? So what I wanted to look at here is the long-term debt and total liability and accounts payable. So if you look at from 2008 to 2014, the debt is increasing and then account payable is increasing. So they're spending so much money that eventually that they have to pay off, right? So that also contributed into their American Apparel declining in profit, right? And then their costs also increase, right? So if you look at the selling and distribution cost, increased so much, and then general cost also increased, right? So they're not doing very well on bottom line. So let's look at let's do some segment analysis. So if you look at table 6, it has it divided by different sectors. What do you make of this table? Yeah.
Sales has gone down a lot in Canada.
Okay. Yeah.
Their wholesale business remained relatively profitable despite their retail business kind of tanking.
So the basic bottom line here is that their wholesale business is doing the best as compared to other businesses. So one of the recommendations that we can look into is, hey, why don't we concentrate on the U.S. wholesale businesses as opposed to something else? Because as evident in the financial data, U.S. wholesale business is doing the best among the others. And I don't know, we're not certain whether U.S. retail can be turned around or not, right? So if there's a recommendation to turn around the U.S. retail, yes, go into U.S. retail as well. But if not, why don't we close down the U.S. retail and focus on the U.S. wholesale? Okay. So this is also, it shouldn't be there, but this is the table for different regions, how they're performing in different regions. The key here is U.S. is not much different from any other countries, is that they're declining in performance and in sales and profitability. Okay, so this is the cotton price of the United States from 1982 to 2012. One key noticeable factor is it spiked up in October 2010, resulting in the lowest operating profit for American. Okay, so what do financial data tell you? Static sales, fairly constant margins, but then they have a high cost, and then operating losses in 4 of the last 5 years, and debt and payments have both risen. Look at the segmentation. U.S. wholesale business performs the best, and then retail businesses is kind of stagnant, and there's not much regional differences outside of the United States. Okay, so what are some of the factors that hurt their performance? I'll take. Okay, so this group, what do you think were the factors that hurt their performance?
Well, they had to pay a lot of money to produce it, for starters, just because they paid their workers a lot more than a comparable company might have.
Okay.
So in the wholesale business, you'd expect that to cost them more, but it didn't, because there's more inelastic demand, so they can sell that easier.
Right.
Whereas in the retail side, it didn't translate into what they might have expected it to have.
Okay. Point. Back group, what do you think were the factors that resulted in a lower performance?
Higher operating costs.
Okay.
That came most likely from like expansion.
Yeah. Okay. So too quick of an expansion really hurted them in some sense. What do you think were your factors? One factor that had.
Well, I think the recession caused them at a bad time.
Okay.
That combined with the cotton prices. It could have worked out, but I think a random into the dish with the recession and the prices increasing.
Okay. That group?
So, like the changing consumer taste, leads their sales to decline because no one's really paying that money for like no brand.
So why do you think the consumer taste has changed?
Well, it's always changing, like every year to year, and I feel like now our society's more wanting to identify them or like use their apparel to describe who they are as a person.
Right.
And if you're just getting a blank shirt, that doesn't really do anything.
Okay, fair point. Yeah.
We were also talking about the operating costs
Mhm.
being a major factor, but maybe also the geographical distribution of some of those profits. Like in Europe, it was pretty high at one point, and in 1 year it just like maintained a low kind of ratio.
Okay, so here are my, what I think were their factors, right? So first of all, the consumer taste, right? American Apparel's like appeal for urban LA downtown look may not be as much appealing to consumers anymore. So their target has become very smaller as opposed to before, right? And then as the trend changes, nowadays we want to wear something that has a distinct identity, right, like Travis mentioned. So having a plain shirt that's highly priced doesn't really do much for consumers, so that has affected. And then another thing is the strategy implementations. By 2009, American Apparel operated in 17 countries, over 75 stores. So there was a huge expansion in a short period of time. Then you'd have to take into the local preferences and local environment, which made the complexity of the strategy implementation, right? And then there were increased variation in product, style, size, and color. What started out as a t-shirt shop has become a total like a clothing store, right? So they're producing bags, socks, jeans, and then everything else. So they're not really specialized to do those, and then their initial focus was t-shirts. So shying away from the initial focus into a multiple variation made the strategy implementation more difficult, right? And obviously there was an increased cotton cost, and then recession, they were hit by recession, and then operating expenses went up. So all of your points were good points. These are just my summary of those factors. So let's take more recommendations from each group. What do you think are the potential recommendations? Let's start from here. What's your recommendations for American Apparel?
Possibly, since they have control of their manufacturing costs and like the benefits that they give their outside employees, they can cut those in order to just cut expenses as much as they can.
Okay, cut the expenses. Great.
We thought they should rebrand themselves, put a logo in their shirts, make people want to buy their apparel, you know, so that they can show it off. And so that other people see American Apparel and they're like, oh, like they have money, or oh, they can dress, they have that style because they chose to buy that, not just like a plain white t-shirt. And yeah.
Okay, rebranding. What do you think are your recommendations?
I think they're caught in between. They haven't really differentiated themselves well enough, and at the same time they can't pick the price. So they're kind of sitting in between those two,
Right.
so they have to pick one of them.
Right. Good point. Yeah. What's your point?
We said to cut the salaries and
Okay.
maybe the workers.
So how is
Or
that
just,
going to work?
just downsize in general.
Oh,
So
okay.
maybe not like cut somebody's salary. Does that sound
Just
although
like,
they do have very high salaries.
yeah, just like reduce
They've
all
got to
their
cut
costs.
something.
They gotta cut
Yeah, like
something.
Okay.
a little bit of downsizing.
To cut the operating costs.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit of both, like cutting operating costs and also like rebranding a little bit so they can charge higher for their clothes.
Okay. What's your recommendation?
To kind of close non-American retail and then reposition as more of a luxury.
Oh, luxury good? Okay. Okay, so here are my recommendations. So like you can improve the managerial effectiveness and efficiency, right? So if, given that appeal is still there, right, American Appeal's design and branding and appeal to customers are still there, it means that something is not going well in the value chain, like activities in the value chain, right? So you want to focus and tighten the coordinations of different stages of activities, maybe design it different or market it a little differently. to make it more effective and efficient. Retrenchment and core business focus. So as you saw on the segmentation financial statement, they're making the most profit from the wholesale business. So they may want to just focus on wholesale as opposed to going into retail, right? So they have good quality t-shirt that they can sell into different brands and for them to print their logo and sell it at a higher price. So they may want to do that, right? And lastly, we position American Apparel as a mainstream casual fashion brand, like how H&M and Gap is doing it. But there is an issue with that because they have a high price, so they may have to outsource their manufacturing and production to other countries. So what's the implication on American Apparel's vertical integration? The implication is, first you need to find out the source of brand identity and consumer appeal. If the source of brand appeal and consumer appeal is from the quality of American Apparel, they want to keep their vertical integration. But if the appeal to customer is more of their design, then there's no reason for American Appeal to keep the high cost manufacturing and in the United States, so they may want to outsource it, right? And you can focus on the quality. So for the second recommendation on retrenchment and core business focus, because you're focusing on the manufacturing, and then I believe the other other brands are liking the American Apparel for their quality, you might want to keep the vertical integration and focus on the quality and then manufacturing within the United States. For the last one, repositioning American Apparel as a mainstream casual fashion brand. If that's what you're going to do, you may want to outsource and then lower your cost, right? So that's my recommendation. So here's the key takeaways of American Apparel. I'll leave it to you guys to read it. I'll post this slide so you guys could go over them. So but the basic idea here is we looked at the value change and then vertical integration and de-integration structure of different industries and what are the conditions that affected the integration and de-integration, and we looked at what can be recommended to the companies that struggle by implementing the vertical integration. Okay. So next class we'll go over chapter 12, global strategy and multinational corporations, and we'll do quiz 4. I'll hand you guys the case analysis for Awesome Squad and then group 3, right? So the rest of you guys are free.